so before we get started, we wanted to do a little exercise with you. So if you don't mind, close your eyes and keep your eyes closed.
Okay, so we're kind of starting in a dark place. Your eyes are open.
It's only going to work when we're not peeking.
We already closed our eyes, so we practiced this thing.
Yeah. So we don't have to close our eyes. But you can put your head down, close your eyes.
Just relax.
Just relax.
So we're just going to start by trying to get us to think about two places first. Two places that we all have in common. And when I say we all, I mean everybody on this planet. Okay, the first place is realizing that we're going to die one day. Okay, and again, I apologize for starting in a dark place. But first of all, realizing we're going to die. So we're going to first talk about two places, our death and then our birth. But we'll start with our death. So this is something that none of us have experienced yet. We all know it's coming. We know it's out there in the distance. So the very first thing you picture is a grave. Okay, so just picture what a grave looks like. Picture that rectangle hole in the ground. Picture yourself crawling down into that hole in the ground and sitting at the bottom of it, kind of looking up. And just keep that image in your head for a second. And now we'll just rewind real quick, all the way back to birth. And now just picture the faces of babies. Cute little babies from all over the world. Little Mexican babies, Chinese babies, American babies, little cheeks, little smiles, little giggles. These again are two places that are on a timeline that are something that's it's relative to all of us. And we already know where the beginning was for all of us. We know where the end's going to be. These things are not disputable. Now the things that we want to try to get to in this little workshop are all those details in between, all the things that we don't know about, the things that we don't fully understand, the things that we don't fully have the answers for, but we know that they're all there. And those things might consist of community. So picture what you think a great community looks like, what a great home looks like, a great family, a great neighborhood, a great active network of families. And then picture
food. Where does your food come from?
Picture farms. Picture the way food is distributed, the way it's produced, the way we consume it.
Picture prison. Do you think there's a different way that might address justice better than the way we have today?
Picture inmates in their cells. Picture human beings actually in cages. Picture the whole process of incriminating people. Just picture what you see the justice system looking like.
Picture the education system. What do you think schools should look like?
What do classrooms look like? What are we being taught in schools? What are we doing with that education? How practical is it? How applicable is it to our lives?
And then picture conflict. Imagine that you see two people arguing on the street. What do? Do you just sit and watch? Do you intervene? What do you think your place is in this situation? How would you try to solve it? So to begin talking about community, we have to get to know each other first. So let's start by learning each other's names. Everyone can open their eyes. And the reason we did that exercise is because we don't have the answers to all these questions, but through this workshop and through discussing these things together, hopefully we're going to find a way to connect the dots and come up with solutions together. So, that being said,
No, that's it. Just basically, just hold those little images in your head. It was not like a major, breakthrough exercise or anything. But basically, the concept behind just having those images kind of flash in your head without us showing you images to actually think of it for yourself is that all these issues are connected, in one way or another. And for us to start to be able to break it down, we have to somewhat put them on the same timeline and slowly try to deconstruct these things. And the very first thing we're going to try to do in the first part of this session is start to deconstruct it by deconstructing ourselves, how we think, what our identity is made out of, and how we perceive ourselves.
And where do these ideas come from, what we think is right and wrong? So let's learn each other's names. Okay, everyone stand up and get in a circle. So I know it's not morning for some of you because you were up at 7 important to get to know people and trust the people that you're working with. And it makes all the difference in the world. So we're going to get to know each other for about 10 minutes right now. Fred?
Yes.
Do you want to? Okay. So actually, let's spread the chairs out a little bit more. This game is called Let the Wind Blow. Okay? We don't want anyone to get hurt. So cool. Is this school? Is that school? We're trying to make it less like school. Is your school like this? Do you guys have fun like this in your school? No. Okay. Okay, so one person is stuck in the middle, okay? And that person has to say something to get as many people as possible out of their seats. So you're going to say something like, let the wind blow if your favorite color is purple, okay? Now, if your favorite color is purple, and we're trusting that you're going to be honest here, okay? If your favorite color is purple, then you have to get up out of your seat, and you have to switch seats with someone else. But I'm also trying to steal a seat, okay?
Kind of like musical chairs.
Yeah, so one person is going to end up without a seat, and then that person comes to the middle and says, let the wind blow if, let's say, you've been to Florida. And then everyone who's been to Florida gets up and switches seats. So this is a way that we get to know each other and see what we all have in common and what we don't. Okay? So there's a few rules. You can't just switch seats with the person directly next to you. So you can't switch here and you can't switch here. Does that make sense? Okay, and you also can't just stay seated in your same seat. If that statement is true about you, you have to move. Okay?
And
Any
grab
questions?
a seat.
Yeah, and grab a seat. Okay?
And each time there'll be one chair pulled out, right? So there's less chairs. For the
Well, there's always going to be one less chair.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah.
Because more people will be standing? No.
No, just one person
Oh,
will always
that's
say.
right.
And this is a good point because notice how none of these games are about winning.
There's no winners.
There's no winning in these games.
Well, what
And
good
the
is
main-
that? No, I'm sorry. Just me, sorry.
Okay, so.
Oh, and no bumping and no pushing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. No
Yeah,
tackling.
sorry.
Let the wind blow if you. Let's see. If you are from the Northeast.
Let the wind blow if your name starts with the letter H. That was easy.
Let the wind blow if you're in purple.
You guys should be
gotta
fighting
get
for your seat, by the way.
Oh, but you guys can't switch.
Then choose another state with Anna.
Let the wind blow if you're a journalist.
Journalist.
Am I a journalist?
You
I'm
are.
a journalist. No, I'm not.
Okay. Let the wind blow if you're older than 10.
That's all of them.
She's trying to laugh.
If you go to school.
Okay. Let the wind blow if you voted for Obama.
What?
Oh,
I can't do that. What's that? Let me see. Let the wind blow if you're over 50.
Okay, we're gonna do 5 more rounds of this.
Can I have my own chair?
I only know I can do that.
Okay, let the wind blow if you're younger than 50. Oh, wait a minute.
You pushed me.
Okay. Let the wind blow if you have sisters or a sister.
the wind blow if you live west of the Mississippi.
That's too much.
Now I go to my next question.
What countries in Mississippi again?
Let the wind blow if you live east of the Mississippi.
I haven't lived either way.
Okay, we're gonna do two more rounds. Two more rounds. You and one more person.
Okay. I can't think of anything else. See, let the wind blow if you're an activist.
Everyone should be standing up.
Yeah.
Oh, you're almost
Last one, you gotta make it good.
Let the wind blow through kids.
Yeah.
All right, thank God it's the last one.
Alright.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, good. So, the next exercise is a little fun too. We're gonna have a snowball fight, but it's not snowing. So, we can pull one more chair. Now that we're done. So everyone grab a piece of paper, take one, pass it down. And you guys are going to write a fact about yourself that's not obvious, that people wouldn't really guess about you. But you're comfortable that it's going to come out because someone's going to end up reading it. Okay? So for example, like, this is the one that I usually use, but I guess I won't use it now. I got kicked out of Girl Scouts in the 3rd grade for eating with my hands, eating Indian food with my hands. Okay, so something that like that people would never really know about you by looking at you. Okay, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna crumple up the paper. We're gonna have a snowball fight, and when I call time, you're gonna pick up any paper that's in front of you. You're gonna read that statement, and you have to guess who that statement's about. Okay? So the more personal you get, the better, because we'll get to know each other, but nothing that you don't feel too comfortable people hearing about or learning about. Okay, so take some time, think about it, and I'm going to pass around some markers so you can write. Just throw your pen in the middle so no one remembers what it is. So obviously if you're having a snowball fight and it falls next to you, pick it up and keep throwing it. And try to keep it in the circle.
Oh, we're gonna throw them around?
Yes.
Oh, so just throw it in the middle?
We're gonna throw it at people. Throw your paper at somebody else.
Okay.
That doesn't seem very polite.
I know.
Well, we're in the youth club.
Oh, no.
Yeah. We don't have to be going.
Does anyone need more time?
I still, yeah, I
Okay.
can.
And once again, like, you might be thinking, what are all these random activities about? But every activity has a lesson. So this lesson is also about sharing. Like, it's important to open up if you're going to be working with people. Ready?
Can we start?
Okay, 1, 2, 3, go.
Wait, we just
Keep throwing it. Pick one up, throw it.
Keep going?
There you go, keep throwing it. Hany, you can call time whenever you want to call time.
Okay,
5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, everyone grab one.
Everybody should have one. There's one behind you.
Okay, cool. So let's actually get started now. So the first thing we're going to talk about is perspective. I want everyone
I'll take the paper from
to
you guys.
take a sheet of white paper. Now, we don't have clipboards, and there are not that many of us, so I'll give you many sheets just so that you have a backing to draw on. But grab a marker. If you don't want the yellow one, you shouldn't have to
Yeah, the yellow one's kind of
write
hard to
with
write
that.
with.
So, I mean, you could pick anything. We'll just pass this around. But you guys have 5 minutes to go sit in the lobby. Everyone knows where the lobby is, right? It's just down the hall with the couches right near the front desk.
There's like a little lounge there. There's tables and chairs, and there's a TV and stuff.
And you have to draw the lobby. Now, we can't tell you anything else, and you're not allowed to communicate with anyone else. So starting now, you're not talking to anyone in this room, and you're not allowed to look at each other's pictures, okay?
Sit away from
don't
each
try
other.
to peek.
Just find a chair.
Do we have to show this when we're done?
Yeah.
Yes.
But
Well,
don't worry,
how about we're not good.
it has nothing to do with
Nobody's
how
a
good
drawer.
of a drawer
Yeah,
you
it
are.
doesn't- it
No,
doesn't
like I
matter.
can't even draw a chair.
doesn't
Trust
matter.
me, I do stick figures. But that's not the point, okay? So you'll find out the point later.
Yeah, basically
But-
sit down, find a spot, sit down, and just draw what you see in the lobby. Whatever you think you want to draw, just draw the lobby.
And if you guys cheat
And that one-
and
now-
look at each other's, then the whole exercise doesn't work. So just stick to your own
Come
thing.
back in 5
In
minutes.
5 minutes.
And by the way, don't just draw one item from the lobby. Try to draw the actual lobby.
Yeah.
You guys are talking, by the way.
No talking, no talking. Okay, so here's my question. Every single person had the exact same instructions, and every single person had the exact same lobby that they were asked to draw. So how come none of our pictures look alike? Why do we all have different portraits of the exact same thing?
Because it's different point of views.
Different points of view. Can everyone hold up their pictures? Does anyone want to add to that? Does anyone agree or disagree? Like, why do all our pictures focus on different things? Come on, guys.
It can also be like what caught your eye the most.
What caught your eye the most? Yeah, like
So for me,
here.
it was the painting was the focus because I was sitting right in front of it.
Yeah, so you focused on the painting. I didn't draw the painting. You also focused on the painting and you focused on people. Also, I realized that I don't have any people in here. You're a
I'm
mess.
struggling.
Yeah, I noticed you focused on the artwork and the flowers as well. You focused on that man. And so that's something that stood out to you. And the American flag, did anyone see the American flag?
No, I didn't.
I didn't even see it, so how
I see
come?
it.
I drew it.
Oh, you did too? Okay, so that kind of says something about
was
you
rolled
guys.
up.
What sticks out?
That's why I don't like that.
Okay. Is it, let me see the other one. So you also focused on the decorative aspects of the
You
Oh.
drew the pattern.
Kind of.
So are you into decorative, like, paintings and
Well,
flowers?
I like it, but I'm not, I really don't practice on
Yeah.
painting. I mean, but if I have the opportunity, I would like that.
Yeah?
So yeah, but I don't have time to actually just sit there and
Yeah,
paint, yeah.
of course. And, I'm sorry, you didn't get to this
It's
exercise.
fun.
So what do you think affects our point of views? Like, what makes you focus on the American flag and you focus on people? Like, where do these things come from? Yeah.
From where you're sitting.
From where you're sitting, that's true, that's very symbolic. Yeah. Okay, good. What else?
Well, just what you can do. People are a lot harder to draw than a chair or a desk. So some of it has to do with
Skill?
what your skills are, and in utilizing those that you have. And
I found it ironic that the Arab man was standing behind the American flag.
Oh. So what made you focus in on that? I didn't even see the Arab man there.
This
Yeah, he was actually watching the news, and he was kind of sitting at an angle, that's why.
So all this has to do with perspective and point of view. So clearly we can see that there's not necessarily one truth of what this lobby looks like because we saw it in all different ways. So what about the world map? Is that the truth? Is that what the world looks like? What do you guys think? Does that represent what the world looks like? No? Why do you say no?
because
It does? Why do you think it does?
actually,
No, guys, the reason we did these exercises in the beginning, we spent a lot of time doing these fun games, is so that we feel comfortable talking in front of each other. There's no right or wrong answer. No one should feel stupid or smart or anything. We're just sharing our ideas. So what do you think? Is this the true picture of the world? Is there a such thing as a true picture of the world?
no,
Why do you say that?
because it doesn't look like it, like the world has houses.
Okay, so it's not detailed enough for you. Okay, let's say we were looking at it from a view way too far away for you to see houses. Is that what you would look at? Is that how you would draw the Earth? It is? Okay, cool. And would anyone else draw it differently? What's in the middle? What's the first thing that stands out to you? What's in the center of this map?
Water, which is the
Water.
survival.
Okay.
So you could say that, sorry, I studied government, so
Yeah.
we did this in class.
Yeah.
That, you know, this is like an American-centric map, meaning like the first thing you see is like the American, or the American continent, but you could instead have like Africa in the middle, or you could have Asia in the middle. So, I mean, the world is also like not flat, right? So it's round, and so you could, depending on like where you choose to start from, that's where like the focus of the map would be.
Also, something that I would like, if I could draw a map and show it to people to bring up what you were saying, it would be just as correct. There's no reason why north is over top. You could turn it upside down and then write everything upside down so that, you know, whatever's, and it's just as correct as anything else. But a lot of people, when they would see it, would think that it's a picture of another world or something. Not realize, because they're so used to seeing north on top, south on bottom. And wherever they live in the world, that area is in the center, and everything else is in relationship to it. You know, the maps are drawn for those, you know, for that area.
That's a really good point. And that brings me to my next point, which is this what the maps look like, let's say in Africa, India? Yeah, it is. But why isn't India or Africa in the center in those maps? Who gets to decide which maps we use and which maps get replicated as the truth around the world? People who have... Okay, technology is part of it. So if you're able to build it and spread it, then that's how your point of view gets taken as what's normal. That's true. But who gets to reproduce things and say this is the truth? Superpowers. And the key word, I guess, in that is power. People who have power get to present knowledge and say this is the way things are, this is the truth. But we always have to think about it and realize that that is just one perspective. So you actually like said exactly what I wanted you to say. Because we're going to another type of map, which is just as much of the truth. The last map we looked at is called the Mercator map. That's the one that you usually see in your classrooms, right? So that's what's taken as the truth. Has anyone seen this map before? No? This map, does anyone know what it's called? This is called the Peter projection map, okay? It's just as much as the truth, except this map, the Mercator map, it focuses on keeping the same shape of the continents, okay? So this is the correct shape that the world looks like. However, since we're trying to flatten a globe, it's impossible to keep the same shape and the same size. So the person who made this map thought the shape was more important, but not the same size. The Peter's projection map, that's the actual sizes of the continents. What is the difference between this map and this map? What is the major difference that you guys see? Yeah.
That the sizes are different.
Yeah, the sizes are different. What continent is much, much bigger in this map than in this map? Anyone else? Africa.
South America.
South America, yeah. So this is the actual size of these continents, but we might have never known that if we hadn't seen this other perspective of the truth. Does anyone see anything else different about this map?
I mean, it just shows you how our information is controlled.
Yeah.
We were talking, Mel and I were talking with some Brazilian students, and they were mentioning that, well, you realize that Brazil is the size of the United States. And most people would, you know, when they think of Brazil, you know, it's a little country in South America, and not realize that it's just as big as as the United States.
Like when we talk about perspective, it's all shaped by the information we receive.
Yeah. Okay, so Fred, this is the world that you were talking about.
Right.
The world turned upside down, but is it really upside down because our globe is suspended in directionless space, right? We define what's north, south, east, and west. So really, if someone in Africa had decided or had the power to spread their maps and they wanted their continent in the center, and let's say they were from South Africa and they wanted their country on top, this is what we would take as normal. This is how we would be drawing our maps in school. And it takes a second to really re-envision it, because still when you see it, what are you thinking? It's upside down, right? so it's kind of hard to be, except, yeah. Like, so we actually, as Americans, we live in the South, if we looked at it this way, right? Okay, so we don't only need to focus on maps. Now let's look at culture. So we're going to look at about 4 different pictures, and I don't want you guys to say anything for 5 seconds, and then we're going to share out what's your first gut reaction. Don't get embarrassed. Don't think, oh, what I'm saying is racist or politically incorrect. So take 5 seconds to just realize the first thing that you feel when you see that picture, and then we're going to share out. So what do you guys think when you see people eating with their hands? Yeah.
I think it's really disgusting.
You think it's rude and disgusting. What else? See, I like the honesty.
I don't mind if I would offer him sanitizer.
Yeah, okay. Anyone else?
Well, I was thinking it might be India because he's eating with his right hand. His left hand is nowhere to be seen.
Mm. Good.
I thought about Girl Scouts.
Yeah, that's what I thought about Girl Scouts.
Okay, so why is it disgusting to eat with your hand? Yes.
Because your hand has germs, and when you eat, it goes in your mouth and you get it back.
That's true. Do you ever eat chips?
Yeah.
Do you eat sandwiches? That's with your hands. Is that gross?
No.
Why not? It's the same thing.
Because you don't.
Ah. No one's putting you on the spot to say you're wrong. It's just a bunch of questions. Like this class is more about understanding that there are a whole bunch of questions instead of having answers. So it's just something to think about. Why is this seen as disgusting, but eating chips or eating sandwiches with your hands, because that's normal in this culture, why is that not seen as gross? Just think about it.
Oh.
Because you're not really going to put your hand all the way
It's all based on perception and culture.
Somehow in this country, we find it, proper that we can just pick up a sandwich and just eat it. It doesn't, but we can't connect it with eating food like that. But the reason...
I guess because
Oh,
it's so messy, like, eat rice like that. Like, you'll have it all over yourself. Yeah, and then we wash our hands, right? And then
Well, actually, yeah.
I'm
Like,
really clumsy. Like, even drinking coffee, I just have to steal it on my So eating rice could
if you think about it, like in American culture, we're used to eating pizza with our hands too. When on the other side you have more proper people that would see that food and they would have a fork and knife and pizza's well known. Everyone likes to hold it with their hands and bite their with their hand, and the other hand that people
Even though
using
it's
a fork and knife.
And I'm sitting, I have pictures of sitting at the dinner table with the friend of the guy that I mentored with, apprentice to my work. And he's 70-some years old, and he's at the head of the table, and he's in a wheelchair. But he eats, and he's got his 2 dogs, big dogs, beside him. He eats some, and then he gets up and he puts his fork down or his spoon down. The dog eats out of it, and he comes back and he eats some more.
I can't.
He's 70-some years old. He's done this for a good part of his life. And it means nothing to him, and it was healthy and had no problems, But it was a bit getting used to, to watching them eating together, sharing their food like that.
Another question would be like, when did it become customary that we're supposed to get a piece of metal touch our food, and then put the food in our mouth. Like, why do we have to have that medium, that tool to actually eat?
Separates us.
Like, when did it become weird for us to actually touch our food, to actually know what our food feels like, to actually, it's almost as if it's disgusting. Like, we can't actually touch it.
Yeah.
We need to have a piece of metal. So that means now you have to support an industry. That means that somebody has to make these pieces of metal. It means that, you know, now you have to also have a certain type of metal. And then now you have a product also that some metals aren't good enough, so some people want to have the most fanciest pieces of metal just to eat your food. Just something that would have been so simple for you to just do by just picking it up and putting it in your mouth.
But you create a lot of jobs.
Right. You create a lot of jobs, you create a big industry, you create a lot of pollution, you create a lot of things.
Yeah.
A lot of wars, you create a lot of things. And at the same time, you're also separating yourself from the rest of society. Because, you know, we're not just changing how we eat, we're also changing the kind of food we eat as well. And now we've also made food a much different thing, because now we don't, most of us know, and I'm in the same boat, we don't eat anymore because we have to, we eat because we want to, right? And food is like our hobby now. We don't know what to do with ourselves, so eating is one of those things that we do for pleasure now. You know, you want to go hang out, it's Friday night, Saturday night, what do? You go eat. That's your form of entertainment now. And all these things have connections. You know, it's something to consider and to break down.
Okay, so look at the next picture. 5 seconds of silence.
I love to lick a plate, but I don't do it when people are around.
Okay, that's a good way to start. Why not?
Because people would think I was being very crass.
Well, why is that seen as rude?
I don't know, I mean, the last drop of some really good food, you know, it's like, you don't want to throw it out, right?
I agree. Do you think this is weird, to lick your plate?
Well, what's called it? We were raised since we were young. Like, if we tried doing that when we were young, my mom would say no. Well, the prophet kind of like he hated that thing, and I think he like summarized it to like as in a dog like licking or eating up his food. I mean, I'm sorry, not pointing this out to anyone, but this is what like we were taught. And
so perspective is based on culture.
Actually, my mom makes sure that we don't leave anything in our plate. Not a piece of rice, not nothing. And
that's the thing. Didn't Prophet Muhammad also say that like don't even leave a grain of rice?
Yeah, don't leave anything behind you. Like my mom would tell us, like put something underneath you while you're eating bread so the crumbs won't come down. But we don't all do that.
Can I say this upon that? Like, are you? And again, this is speaking, you know, as a Muslim, right? And I'm not knowledgeable about everything in Islam, but are we sure that Prophet Muhammad was against us licking our plates? Or do we think that maybe our parents have picked up the same customs that the Westerners told us that we're supposed to be doing, like using forks and knives, for example, where all of our people, if you come from the Middle East or from overseas or whatever is considered the Middle East, we used to eat with our hands. And now we do the same thing that quote-unquote the West does. And if you look at our other practices, like the way we get married, the way we do this, there's a lot of things that we just follow that quote-unquote the civilized world tells us is what we're supposed to be doing. So I would question this and find the source, exactly. Because I would doubt, just from common sense, that Prophet Muhammad, a man that really spoke about not wasting, of even licking your fingers. There's actually statements about licking your fingers.
I heard that. So.
I would really doubt that he would say that it would be wrong. And not saying something against your parents. I was raised the same way as you. My mom would slap me, would throw her shoe at me. Actually, she would throw her shoe at me, make me pick it up and give it back to her. She could throw it at me again. I wouldn't dare to try to do something like that. Right? I could never do something like that. But I would doubt that Prophet Muhammad would really be against you licking the food off your plate, knowing that there's people starving that would be very happy just to have that food on the plate.
I understand, yeah, but I think he just like summarized it, like as in it seems like, but I don't think he's gonna forbid it or anything.
Yeah, we should look it up and we should see. That's a good point though, the cultural.
Yeah, I actually heard that it was proven that it's healthier to eat with your hands.
Yeah, I heard that too.
Helps your digestive system.
You should go back to your Girl Scout.
I know.
I know. It turned out to be healthy.
No, but you brought up a really good point, because our culture and our traditions,
Yeah.
sometimes they
And
perceive what we
family
think.
stuff spread down through family from generations to generations.
And we're not saying go and like, you know, confront your parents or your family, you'd be sensitive to your traditions. But the point is that even our traditions from our families, you know, sometimes it's mixed with other customs and other traditions that we should be not afraid to reconsider and deconstruct in a very healthy and positive way that still keeps family together. You know, so it's great that you brought
It's
that up.
questioning where things come from. Like I tell Hany all the time, why do you wear collared shirts? Like where did that come from? Where did collars come from? And you just ask these questions and you can look it up. We have the internet now, Wikipedia. It turns out people used to wear necklaces, so collars used to be separate from shirts. So people used to put on a regular button-down shirt, and then a collar is a necklace. And then after a while, once they started doing sporting events, they didn't want it separate, so they started sewing this necklace to their shirt. And that's where we get that tradition of wearing collared shirts from. We can look
I
up.
never knew that.
Yeah, like there's so many things that, pants. Like how did people start wearing pants? It's because the people started riding horses, and so that was the first time that it started with men, but they realized that they should not be wearing, you know, thobes.
Yeah.
So they invented this thing called pants just to ride horses, and now it's a fashion, and most of us wear it. So
Well,
actually,
actually, I was talking to my professor who grew up in Syria. He's like 82 years old right now. He was saying that, so he used to live on an island, I guess, in Syria. It's called a Jazeera. And when I guess the French came, they actually took him and they exiled his father. They took him and his siblings. They put them in French schools. He was like, that's the first time I ever wore pants.
really, yeah. Yeah, like my dad used to, you know, lungis? Maybe that's a South Asian thing, but it's like this wrap that you wear around. But he started wearing it in America, and people were like, oh, you're a girl, you're wearing a skirt, so he stopped. But so many places around the world, men wear things that in America it would be considered a dress, you know? But who's to say what a woman should wear and what a man should wear? Okay, next picture. 5 seconds.
Oh, gross.
Okay, what are your first reactions? Yes.
Looks like a dead rat.
It looks like a dead rat. Okay.
Yeah.
Other reactions?
Well, I would assume it's a squirrel, but I might not.
Yes.
I wouldn't eat that.
You wouldn't eat that. Why?
Because it looks like they just, if there's a hole there, it looks like they just, killed it.
Have you ever eaten like a turkey for Thanksgiving?
I don't
You don't like turkey? What about a chicken? Like a full chicken? You seen that before?
Like a chicken leg, have you ever had like a drumstick on your plate?
What? Why is that less disgusting than this? It's still in the shape of an animal. You still see
You
the
actually
legs.
have a leg of an animal sitting on your plate.
Why is this gross? But when you see a chicken in front of you, that's not gross.
Maybe because
it's
it's
a rat.
Yeah.
But why is a rat seen as gross?
Because it's not a chicken.
Because it lives in the
And okay, unless in India, when I go to India, chickens are running around all over the street too.
I know.
Right? So yeah.
Yeah, but like they go in like trees and stuff, and they eat spiders.
Did you want to say something? Okay. So no one's saying that it's okay to eat certain animals over others, but it's good to start thinking about what we see as edible and what we see as gross in other cultures. Like I know some people have this stereotype, like oh, the Chinese eat monkeys or whatever people say.
Cats and dogs.
Yeah, cats and dogs. But
Grubs.
really,
The grubs, like the
Oh, yeah.
in the Polynesia and all
yeah,
the
but
big
Frogs.
slugs.
that's true. But what is something classy in America? Escargot. What's escargot?
Snails.
Snails. Why do we eat that in this country?
Eating any animal is disgusting.
I know.
Think about this. Have you guys seen advertisements or commercials for fast food or even like fancy restaurants? Not fancy, but like Chili's or whatever, where they actually have like steak grilling and they show you how amazing it looks so juicy. Like imagine if that was advertised to us the same way as steaks. Imagine if that was part of our culture. We would honestly, if you really think about it, we would think it's okay. We would think it's okay. And we would eat it up just like we would steak.
Like it's first thing we look at. It's like
Yeah.
something we're not used to seeing.
You're just not used to seeing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, for me, it's not that. It's just rats are unsanitary. When I look at what I'm going to eat, I have to see where it comes from.
Yeah.
And I like to dissociate also
Wait, and that's a good,
Yeah,
and that's actually a good point too.
Because when we look at rats, we have this association, at least from New York, oh, it's in the subway, etc. But if we knew where our beef and our chickens really came from, if we saw the actual factories and the farms and the living conditions they're in, how they're walking on their own feces, they're eating their own feces, we would think twice about what we're eating being sent.
Chickens, I mean, if you look at all the ads for selling poultry or meat, they usually have like a picture of a farm, you know, a little rainbow or...
Yeah.
And none of these animals are being raised on a farm. I don't know if you guys have seen films like Food Inc. and other things. If you look at chickens, for example, maybe you don't know this, do you? About how chickens are being raised?
She doesn't want to know.
I'll tell you, because it's something you should think about. Chickens, for example, they're raised in a warehouse, okay, and they're fed chemicals. Are you leaving because this is gross?
No.
They're fed chemicals, okay, and they're fed in a way so they can grow faster. You know, I don't remember the exact timeline that it's supposed to take a full chicken to grow.
6 weeks.
So they do it so it happens a lot faster, because they want the chickens to grow faster so they can hurry up and sell them. The chickens grow so fast, so big, so heavy, that their own legs aren't strong enough. Their legs don't grow as fast as the rest of their body, so their legs start breaking because they can't even hold their own weight anymore. So chickens' life basically is all spent in one spot, 1 or 2 spots, on top of their broken legs, rolling around in their own, you know, their own poop, you know. And
that's what we're eating.
And then they get thrown into boiling water that they're alive. They get, you know, they don't die right away perfectly. They don't get slaughtered perfectly.
That's why you buy the
So forget about, and I'm saying even halal meat. I'm not just saying this is just for,
Well,
you
it's
know,
not supposed to happen with halal meat, but
yeah, and it's good to eat halal meat. You know, halal meat, of course, is when the animal is slaughtered better. You say Bismillah and you make sure all the blood. So maybe the meat is a little healthier. But if you really think about the way the animals are being taken care of, being thrown in these cages, not being raised on a farm, there's nothing halal about it. You know, it's just as bad to a certain extent. You know, Ayesha and I, we've changed our eating habit now. We've stopped eating so much meat. We've almost cut out meat out of our diet, which again go back to tradition. If you go back to our customs, meat is a big part of our diet, right? We have meat all the time, most of the time. But if you look at the traditions of Prophet Muhammad, which many people don't know, he spoke out against meat. He said that one day meat will be the alcohol of my people. He said that very clearly, that alcohol will be a major downfall of Muslims. And on top of that, if you look at the way he lived, he went through many months of never even lighting a fire in his house.
which means he never cooked anything.
He never cooked anything. He ate raw food on top of that, so vegetables, simple things. And the time that he did eat meat was once or twice out of the year, where he was invited to a wedding or something. But traditionally, he didn't eat meat. But now for us, meat is like water for us. We can't even go through a single meal sometimes without having meat.
Yeah. Well, I can say something also about chickens raised in actually farms and chickens raised for advertisement. Because I went to overseas and I lived there for like 3 years, and I've really seen how the farm chickens are raised, because they're not raised for advertisement or to sell them. So they're basically just raised on eating greens and natural food and whatever they find. I mean, it's not, and I've seen the difference. Like, my husband actually took me to a place where there's like all these white chickens with white fur. And he was like, yeah, these are the ones for advertisement. And he took me to the ones that's farm. There was a huge difference. He's like, these are the ones that are raised naturally, that eat greens and all. And he actually let me also taste the eggs that came from regular roosters that were naturally raised in farms. A huge difference.
Taste the difference, yeah.
Huge difference in color and taste. Like, when I came back over here, I was like, Mom, I can't eat these eggs anymore. I was like, because for me, actually, it kind of tastes a little fake, because I actually tasted the organic, like real organic eggs, and it's much smaller, and it actually, that yolk inside is much darker. It has like a dark orange color and a better taste, I guess. And also the chicken tastes better.
Yeah, and you were fortunate enough to have that experience, but some of us, we've never experienced that, so we just think that this is how it's supposed to be. And no one's saying that eating meat is necessarily wrong. I mean, that's up to you to decide. But like, I know that if I were living in a different country where animals were eating greens, I'd be a lot more comfortable eating meat.
Yeah.
But knowing the way that they're raised and what they're being given to eat, I don't really feel that comfortable eating it here.
Well, my other sister, professor, she told me like how they like get the meat and stuff when they shoot the animals.
Where? In America?
I don't know.
So it's good to do research into where your food comes
See,
from.
cows in this country, just to finish it real quick, cows in this country, almost all of our meat, that comes in this country, the cows are herded up into like little corrals. They get tricked to go into like a large swimming pool, and then they electrocute the water, and then this is how they kill the cows. Or they put them into a cage, and then they have a metal rod that comes in, and they try to stab the cow in the head. And oftentimes they miss, so they keep stabbing it like this many times. So the cow doesn't die right away. And at the same time, when a cow feels like it's going to die, it poisons its own meat, so it releases these hormones into its meat. So even the meat you're getting is not even the healthiest of the meat. So anyways, it's a very sensitive topic. I have a lot of friends that are vegan, basically don't eat meat at all. I don't believe in that. I believe that I can't say that you shouldn't eat meat at all, because it's necessary in some places. Some people, there's some options they have. But there's definitely serious issues to confront and to reflect upon when you come to food.
Okay, so we're running out of time, so we're going to skip to the last picture. 5 seconds. Okay, what's your first reaction? Yeah.
Why is he looking bad?
Why is he looking at?
He doesn't want to be looked at.
Okay.
That's what his face expresses.
What else?
Live and let live.
What?
Live and let live.
Live and let live.
If they're gay, right? Does that come to anybody's mind? Maybe they're
Yeah, I think that.
gay? Okay, maybe.
Maybe somebody's harassing them.
I guess, and in the West, like if two guys hold each other's hands, they're considered gay, but then overseas in a lot of countries, it's just an expression of friendship, just like girls can hold hands.
Yeah. So why do you think it's weird for guys to hold hands here? Do you see guys holding hands ever? No? Do you think it's weird?
I go to AU, so. Our president came out as a transgender.
Really?
No, I mean
Seriously?
student government.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but
Which is still a big deal.
if two guys hold hands here, they're most likely gay, right? Because most American citizens wouldn't do that. Most American male citizens wouldn't do that. They would think it's very strange. And the question is why? Why is it strange to show affection, if you don't mind? Why is it strange for us to hold hands like this? Like, why is this weird? Like, even to us, we admit it looks weird, right?
And why is it okay when girls hold hands? It's not seen as gay. It's seen as, oh, we're friends. But when guys do it, they're held to a different standard, right?
We're dancing
See
here.
a manly
Yeah, girls can dance together.
Yeah,
I
that's
think,
right.
I think
That's
it's
right.
the society that dictates to us what's right, what's wrong. Because to me, this is normal in Egypt.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. In India, too.
Yes, oh my God, all the time you see boys holding hands. And to me, it's fun.
Even like this, when I'm in Egypt, I walk with my friends like this. We walk like this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not even like this, and we will kiss. It's normal, and if you go to some places in Europe, France or Spain, the guys will kiss, like if I'm coming to meet you and your husband, I'll kiss you, but I won't kiss your husband. But if you go to Egypt or the Middle East, I won't touch her, I'll kiss her husband. But where did that start changing? Where did those lines start getting reversed?
Yeah, so we only have like 25 minutes left. I don't know how this happened.
No, we have until 1.
Do we?
Yeah, it's only 11:47.
Oh,
We have
okay.
until 1 o'clock. It's a 3-hour.
Oh, okay. I was told there's an hour break, but I guess if you guys want to leave, obviously you can leave whenever you want. We won't get offended. But if you want, we can
But this
continue.
is, like we did from the very beginning, where we got you to think about these different concepts and different images. This is building up to something, We're not just doing this just for fun, even though there's some fun in it. It's not just, we don't want to do anything just to waste time, We have serious issues to address. There's serious actions that gotta get taken. And we need to mobilize. We have work that needs to get done. So if we're not building up to something that's actually going to do something, then what's the point of anything that we do?
But it's important to understand how perspective really influences your identity, right? And then once you get more comfortable with where these ideas come from and get more comfortable with who you are, then it's much easier to find your place in your community. And once once you find your place in your community, that's when you can organize. So all these things are building blocks towards direct action, which is the second workshop after lunch. Okay, so Hany, would you like to do this? Let's move on to identity now, because I think we really deconstructed perspective. So look at this map. I want you guys to think for a second where you come from, okay? When someone asks you, where are you from? What do you usually say? There's no right or wrong answer.
From Palestine.
From Palestine.
They'll be like, Israel, no, Palestine.
And they would say, Pakistan?
Yeah. Pakistani?
No, Palestine. Unfortunately, it's not located.
What about New Jersey? Sometimes people ask me, where are you from? And I say New York, and they're like, where are you really from? Because we're brown, right? So they want to know.
And if you wear hijab, the first thing they might ask you, do you speak English? Just because they
What's
think,
your
you know.
background?
So like we might not all be American, but we all live in America, is that right? Is there anyone who doesn't live here? No? Okay, so this exercise is to really deconstruct where we're from. We're not just from the place that we live in the States. We came from somewhere else. Maybe not us, I was born in New York, but our parents did, and even our wonderful European ancestry folks here, no one really originated from America, right? We're all immigrants. So yeah, you could say the Native Americans are indigenous, which is true, but they also migrated at some point. So this exercise is to write down, and you might need more than one post-it. You're going to write down your name, and you're going to write it again and again and again for as many generations or places you can trace back to where you're from. So I would do, just an example, I'd write...
Here, do yours, I should say.
I'd write 4 post-its because I know that I was born in New York. So I'm going to write Ayesha. Okay, I'm really bad with geography. Sorry. So I think this is New York. I know that my parents lived in India, so I'm going to put my name over India. Where's India? Okay. But I know that my mom actually was born in Burma. And that is what's cut off. So I'm just going to put it here. And my dad, even though he was born in India, I know that he had Arab ancestry. We don't know where from, but we know our family came as traders from the Arab world. So I'm going to put it somewhere up here. So think of how many places you can trace back. Am I putting it in the right place?
No. No. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So go ahead. So think of how many, and I'll take this and pass it around. Places you can trace back and write your name that many times.
Okay, so I'm also born in New York. Father is from
We have
Egypt.
to write on each post item,
Yeah.
not just
Father's from Egypt. Mother's from Egypt. So that's just one. And that's actually as far as like I can go.
You put it, yeah, you put 2.
Can you go back more generations?
Yeah, go back as
Yeah,
far
as
as you
many
can.
as you can. See, I don't know the other generations, but if you do.
Jeez, we don't really want to go back. I don't need your entire file.
Just feel free to walk up. Whenever you write your name, just walk up and just say it as you're putting it up.
Wait, so do I write my name on
Yeah,
it?
Yeah,
just
just
write
your
your
name.
name.
Yeah.
You want the location?
No, just write your name and then you put it up on the location.
How about you?
You guys can walk up and do it as you're doing it. It's fine.
I wrote Burma instead of Ayesha.
Where did you go? Did you go to the girl?
I can't even see the
Ayesha picked a really low quality map for this.
Sorry. I'm not a journalist.
Very good.
Oh,
Just put it in
so
South
take a
American.
post-it
Just put
and
it
you're
down.
writing your name, and then you're gonna put it where your family's from, where you're from, where your family came from, where their family came from, as far back as you can trace.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you know like 4 different places your family was from, you have to write your name 4 times.
It's okay. Is he putting the time on? Oh, we did. Okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just put it roughly where you think it is.
flowers.
Yeah, that would be that little pile of blue there.
Yeah. Oh, wait. Is it New Jersey?
Yeah, well, you can hardly see it. It's really hard to see.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Usually, if we weren't traveling with this, we'd have an actual map, and then we'd use like little pins. But because we were traveling, we didn't know what we would have.
Yeah, no,
We'll
that
get
makes
a,
sense.
we need to get a better quality. We could have got a higher resolution for the next time.
Yeah, no, it's just the postage is too fat. We
Oh,
need
that's
thin.
right.
Yeah,
And then
you
we
do a
would
map.
connect strings to it to show that it's connected, but we didn't have pins. We didn't have a cordboard.
That's something else. Your mom's from Lebanon.
So we're just gonna go around and share one together first.
It's under all that.
Yeah.
You just put it on top of everything.
What about Lebanon?
Same area roughly. That's good. Just put it on. All right, so why don't we start? Lynn, why don't you start? Just tell us the last 4 places that you can trace what you found.
My mother was born in California. My father was born in Amsterdam, New York, which is near Albany. I come from Albany, New York. My mother's mother was born in Paraguay.
There.
My mother's father was born in Montana or Canada, Montana, I think. But I actually can trace my family. My grandmother, great-grandmother, traced part of the Jackson family. No, not her. Well, at any rate, one of those families all the way back to the invasion of England in 1156.
Wow.
Something like that. But the most interesting relative that I need to research is the first. My father's mother's family came over in the early 1620s from England, and I'm a direct ancestor of the founder of Connecticut, who I know almost nothing about. But I want to say one thing about immigration that bothers me, is I am sure he had no immigration papers, and the people here probably didn't want him, is my guess. All right.
Amazing.
I have a question.
Yes.
I don't know what happened by mistake. I took my daughters to the other room,
Yeah.
and I just asked Schneewer, Mom, what is your daughter? She said in the youth program. So you think it's too late to bring them?
No,
They are
please
only
bring
15
them.
and 16.
But just, I don't want to interrupt her program if you think they're...
No, they don't.
They,
No, bring them.
They're 15 and 16. They don't fit. They fit.
No,
They're like me, so they sit.
Please
no, bring them.
Okay, so it's not too late to bring
It's
them?
not at all, no.
We would love to have him.
Yeah, please bring them.
To me, I came here because really they need it.
Yeah,
It's-
no, it's great that you realize now.
It's wonderful.
It's never too late.
Bring them,
Never
please
too
bring them.
Please
Yes,
bring
yes.
them.
Bring them, come on in.
Okay, bye.
So who else go next? Ayesha or
I already
anybody?
went, right?
I'll go real quick, it's mine's simple. I mean, I was born in New York, and both my parents are from Egypt. And I've never really taken the time to trace anything further than that. But I need to, but who else?
Who else wants to go?
Are you heading out or you?
No, I was just wanted to ask if people would keep it in there. You want me to go?
Okay, you can ask her if you need to.
No, it's
Sure,
fine.
okay.
You wanna go?
I'll go. I was born in Virginia. My mom was born in Kuwait. My dad was born in Jordan. My grandparents were all born in Palestine. So we're originally from Palestine.
I was born in New Jersey, and my mom was born in Lebanon, and my dad is from Palestine.
Okay, very cool. Salam.
Okay, who wants to go next? Go
Okay,
ahead.
I was born in
Salam,
Philadelphia
guys.
and raised in New Jersey. And my dad's from Palestine. And my mom was born in Lebanon, but her family traces back to Palestine, which I forgot to.
Girls, right now we're just looking at the map. We're kind of tracing where we all kind of came from.
Like our
Just so
ancestors.
you know what we're doing. So everybody took their name, and they put their name on the country where they think their family came from. But yeah, so who else wants to say where they're from?
Same
thing.
thing.
Okay. Same thing.
Same. And did anyone not go?
I was born in West Virginia. One side of the family is impossible to trace. but the other side goes back to Lovings on my mother's side, which were, one Loving was replaced George Washington as the surveyor of Virginia when he became president. And another one was The Virginian, the TV show The Virginian. That was one of my great-grandfather's brothers. And then we came from Wales on my dad's mother's side. And then, so that's just really two, West Virginia and Wales. But I did put one in Africa because we sort of all came out of Africa. So that one I know, I think, you know.
I like that.
Yeah.
And you should have heard what you just said.
Yeah, I just heard.
Okay. Okay, who else didn't go yet?
I didn't go yet. I was born in Wisconsin, and on my mother's side, we go back, being traced back to the French Huguenots, came here by way of Canada and then to the States. And one of my relatives on that side, Ben Franklin, said something good about him. That particular line died out. It was the gay side of it, I guess. And on my father's side, they were from Norway. Could trace that back many generations in Norway. My grandparents were from Norway.
How about you guys? Where are you guys from?
You can just share out
So you
loud.
can tell us, where were you born and where were your parents? And how far back can you trace your
Where your parents
ancestry?
came.
Well, we were born in America.
Yeah.
Where?
California too.
Yeah, and then my mom was born, my mom and my dad were born in Palestine.
But my mom's Egyptian and my dad's Palestinian.
Is that as far back you know?
Everybody else is from like Egypt and Jordan, Palestine and Jordan.
Okay.
But as far back as Palestine, but then because of the war it became Jordan and stuff, so it's cool.
Okay. Okay, don't worry, you have to put it up.
Okay.
So, okay. Obviously you can see we're just a few people, and you see how many postage stamps we have up, right? The question really is this. I mean, I guess raise your hand if you're white. Anybody? Considered white. Considered white. Actually, we're all kind of considered white by what we're categorized. Raise your hand if you're black, if you're considered black. Anybody? Nobody's considered black?
My friend tried to convince me that I was Asian.
If you're Asian? Okay, good.
Technically.
So how about brown? Is brown a category? Not really, right?
No.
So there's nothing called brown when you fill out applications. Why are we white and why are we black? And why are we brown? Like where did that start? How did that happen?
I know why we're characterized as white. It's because to make white the majority and not another minority. That's why they don't have all these things.
Yeah. I mean, myself, I'm from Egypt technically, right? Egypt's in Africa. I mean, how come I'm not African American? But color of my skin, I'm considered Caucasian, but if you look at me, I'm clearly not Caucasian, right? And if we trace back our ancestors, I mean, regardless of what you think or what you believe, how we evolved as human beings, whether you believe in the concept of evolution, and we'll let these people come in the room. So whether you believe in the concept of evolution or not, we definitely evolved as people, right? We're all from one species. We're definitely from an original mother and father. However you think that mother and father was put on this earth, religiously speaking or through a faith, we definitely came from the same lineage. And if you look at what scientists will tell you of most likely where we came from, it's probably from someplace over here, right? Yeah. Someplace in Africa. And at some point, we migrated and we spread out. And we took on different languages. We took on different features. Some of us ended up settling up here in what is Europe today. And we took on certain characteristics. And then our skin color started changing. Why did that happen? And why did they, yeah?
It depends on the sun.
Depends on the sun, depends on a lot of things. And Ayesha was telling me the other day that she read, or somebody told her, that when folks came up here and they migrated to Europe, why did they stay there? Why didn't they still keep migrating? Because in other places, people still kept migrating, and at the same time, they had interactions with other people of other cultures, other religions. Why did they kind of stay among themselves here? And one idea would be because during the ice age,
they got basically trapped in one location,
So
so they couldn't intermarry or interbreed with people from other places. And so whatever genetic variation that group of people had, they kept on intermarrying, and so your skin color and your features start to look different if you're completely separated and not intermarrying with people from other locations. So it's really interesting when we see how different we all look. We always wonder, where does that come from? And it's hard to figure it out because we're people of oral history. Only recently in our historical narrative did we start writing things down, right? So how do we know these things? But it's good to think about, because at the end of the day, if we all did originate from the same two people and then we spread out, why don't we see when we're fighting wars and when we're arguing with people from different countries that we're actually killing our relatives, our brothers and sisters?
Yeah, if we're all brothers and sisters, if we all evolved from the same area, and then we took on different features as we spread throughout the world, we took on different religions, different languages, different customs and traditions, and now we've created this thing called the global north and the global south. And if you think of the people in the south, usually what do they end up doing? They end up being the people that work outside, they work the farms, they congregate outside. A lot of their energy and time is usually outside. The folks that stay up in the north, what do they end up doing? Usually they stayed inside. So what do they end up doing? They end up writing, they end up thinking, they became the intellectual people. See, if you really think about it, when we look at our history, collective history as human beings, and we look at the things that we're taught in school, who are usually the scientists? Who are usually the thinkers? Who are the philosophers? The astronomers? The people that give us our collective knowledge and history of our existence and the makeup of the history of the earth and the universe. It's usually mostly people that are quote-unquote white, right? But it's because they're smarter and more intelligent and they've evolved in a much more intellectual way than people that are in the global south, people that are darker skinned. Is that why?
No.
Or it's just because of the migration pattern?
Just because how they were living at the time.
How they were living. So there's different forms of history and different forms of intellect. So people that live out here in Africa or in the south, they stayed outside. They cropped. When they met with their family, they met outside. They spent more time and energy with their families, so they got to know their family more. They got to know nature more. They were more in love with nature, more in love with the outdoors. They respected nature. Mother Earth was a big part of their psyche, of their faith, of their traditions. The folks that migrated up to the north, they didn't have that luxury. They didn't have that temperament. They didn't get those sensitivities. It's not because they're lesser blessed people. It's just the nature of migration. If these people ended up going up to the north, they would be the philosophers and the thinkers and the writers and the scholars. It just so happened that some people stayed down, some people went up. So it created this shift or split within humanity that somehow took on another racist perspective. And those that ended up settling in the north, later on in the United States and North America, somehow they thought something happened to them. See, this is the problem with life, actually, is that when you have too much time to think, and not do things, and not involve, not become engaged, you start to maybe potentially think that you're better than other people. And you start to think maybe that you know more than other people, because you somewhat think, or actually do know more than other people, because you have all this time in the world to think, because you're indoors. So now that you start to think that you know more than everybody else, and you think that you're better than everybody else, and you have, quote unquote, the truth, or the better way of living, what you do is you come and you try to colonize your ways around the world. So if you look at colonization, where did it come from? It came from those people that had, and this is not just from, by the way, it's not just from people that were in Europe, quote unquote white people, but if you look at the Arab settlers, because they weren't quite in Africa either, they also had, they're kind of in the middle ground, they also suffered from these same consequences, of colonizing. And I know that Arabs and Muslims don't want to consider that, but
we don't like to admit that.
When people have too much time to think, and they think that they have more knowledge and more intellect than others, they feel like they have to come and impose that upon the rest of the world. And somehow they take advantage of those that don't have that mindset, because these people are much more sincere, like the Africans that later were kidnapped and later enslaved all around the world. They were simple people, just like the Native Americans were. Earth-loving, simple people. It was beyond their imagination to go and kidnap people to try to take over more land. They found a harmonious, organic way of survival. But the folks that were either in the middle ground of migration or all the way up to the north, they again didn't have that sensibility. They actually lost it. So basically this part of the workshop is just a moment of reflection, and I'm not an expert in this, I'm not an anthropologist, I'm just from reading, from reflecting. Ayesha, she's an anthropologist, so she could break it down better than I could. But the concept of this aspect of the workshop is just to slow down and just reflect, understand the significance of our lineage as a human being, as human beings, as creatures that, are really just creatures that evolve slowly, came to where we are today and created these divisions and now developed a world, a global perspective that is not just detrimental, but is actually the root cause of all the things that we see today. What we see what's happening within the, around the issues of Islamophobia or within the prison industrial complex, it's nothing but racism. You know, and it all stems from the same exact place of people that were able to grasp intellect and not understand why they have it. You know, and somehow they feel like they're the ones that are blessed, or they're the ones that are fortunate, or somehow granted these experiences of knowledge through the blessings of God. But they were chosen by God to have this intellect. Instead of thinking, well, this is actually just a part of evolution. This is just a part of growing, that you're actually not much more fortunate than the rest. And just because you have the intellect, maybe you're actually less fortunate than those that didn't have it, because you're somewhat now disconnected from the family tree and from nature.
Very closed-minded people.
Yeah?
Yeah, and I think part of that, instead of using the word like, instead of saying intellect, like people from these other cultures, they have just as much intellect. It's just there's value like given to certain types of intellect over others, right? So, oh, you can publish a book, so that means you're smarter than the intellect of someone who, through generational knowledge, has learned how to farm in a certain way, that now with all this intellectual, quote-unquote intellectual knowledge to make a tomato last and grow in Florida during freezing weather using genetically modified organisms, right, GMOs, they're now poisoning us without really realizing it, right? They're affecting our genetic makeup, but they think that they're doing something more intellectual. Yeah, that's progress. So then, I mean, the real question is, what is really progress, and is that really a positive?
And we'll just give two examples here of progress, and we saw this in a documentary, and I don't remember, it might have been called Progress.
Blessing
Surviving Progress, actually is what it's called.
Yeah.
And the idea is that, you know, if you think of the concept of what we think of caveman was, you know, or what's the more proper scientific term of these? Anyways, what we think of a caveman, right? That at the beginning that they would go, what would be a better term for somebody that
you mean like at the time, like the Neanderthals, or but they were a different species of human from humans.
Right. Have you guys seen the what's that movie called? Ice Age.
Yeah.
That cartoon. What's the big elephant called that has the woolly mammoth?
Oh,
mammoth. Woolly mammoth, right?
Mammoth, yeah, or mastodons. Yeah.
You know, they used to be everywhere, just like the buffaloes used to roam everywhere, right? But what happens with progress is that, you know, you got to kill a buffalo, or you got to kill a woolly mammoth because it provides you clothing. You can get the wool. It provides you food. It provides you abundance, you know, of opportunities to be sustained as an individual. So you first go out to kill one because you need it, and then somebody comes up with a great idea because they have a lot of time to think. Why are we just killing one? You know, if we just drove them towards this cliff, they would all fall off the cliff, and then we can go down to the bottom of the cliff. We can collect 100 of them at one time. That sounds pretty smart, right? It sounds like a better way. Instead of 100 of us fighting just to kill one, why don't we just scare 100 of them to run off a cliff, and then we can go get them? So it sounds logical. You know, and this is what's happening today in our world, is that we think that the progress we're making is logical. But what happens at the end of the day? You don't have any more woolly mammoth, because you can never eat them all. You can never utilize them all, right? So they end up getting killed, and your sustenance gets washed away, and it ends up becoming a waste. And before you know it, the woolly mammoth is extinct. And now what happens to your people? Your people can't survive. And we did the same thing with the buffaloes here in the United States. You know, there are very few of them. I don't know how many there are. I know there's places that they're, you know, breeding them and getting them back into a certain number, but the buffaloes, they pretty much got wiped off for the large extent. Sharks, we're doing the same thing with sharks. We think sharks are insignificant. We don't realize how important sharks are to the climate, what they do. It's like what a bee does. You think that a bee is insignificant, but you can't grow crops, you know, without bees. Bees have to come and pollinate. You know, without a bee, what is it with certain plants that what is it, the plant that you were telling me about?
Oh, with all the things that we're trying to grow inside, without the bee fluttering its wings and moving the pollen from like a male to a female.
Like the bee movie.
Oh,
yeah, that cartoon.
Yeah, and then at the end of the movie, before the movie finished, how everything was like gray and.
Yeah, exactly. So anyways, yeah.
Just, the buffalo was not wiped out by the, and you didn't say, was not wiped out by the Native Americans,
No, yeah.
but was wiped out to eliminate
The
the
Native
plague Native American culture
Right.
and force them onto reservations to eliminate their food source. So it was well understood what killing all the buffalo meant.
Right.
And like you said, the shark, like if not anybody knows, but the shark is the only organism or the only living thing in the entire world that has that gene that doesn't catch cancer. Everybody can catch cancer in this world but sharks.
Wow.
And some people believe that sharks can be the answer to the cure of cancer.
Like their bones, I've seen that. They sell certain parts of the shark. I don't remember what it was,
Yeah.
but they put it in tablet form or something.
Yeah, exactly. And some scientists need those sharks alive so they can do some research on them. However, there are people out there that are killing the sharks for their own needs, like for food, for
Oil.
yeah.
And I need to research this more, but there's something that they also contribute to when it comes to oxygen. You know, I don't remember the whole process, but basically they're part of that whole cycle of producing oxygen. And you know, we could just go on and on about these stories, but
I know we're boring you right now with all this talking. So the point of this exercise was to now make your mind start thinking, who are you? So if someone just came up and said, who are you? How would you answer that question? So we're going to watch like a 1 minute or 30-second clip, and then we're going to ask you guys, who are you? And in 1 or 2 sentences, think about how you would answer
and
that.
just to set this clip, I mean, this was during the time, this is by Malcolm X, this is before he you know, evolved and developed as a human being, where he didn't take on, you know, a black nationalist perspective towards things, where he thought all white people were the devil and evil. This is before that time, but what he's saying is, if you just take it into your own psyche and your own identity, it's very relative to, you know, considering things.
Okay.
So of course he's talking to a black audience at this period of time.
Can't hear.
Huh? What is that?
If you can't do for yourself what the white man is doing for himself, don't say you're equal with the white man. If you can't set up a factory like he sets up a factory, don't talk that old equality talk. Who are you? You don't know. Don't tell me Negro, that's nothing. What were you before the white man named you a Negro? And where were you? And what did you have? What was yours? What language did you speak then? What was your name? It couldn't have been Smith or Jones or Butch or Powell. That wasn't your name. They don't have those kind of names where you and I came from. No, what was your name? And why don't you now know what your name was then? Where did it go? Where did you lose it? Who took it? And how did he take it? What tongue did you speak? How did the man take your tongue? Where is your history? How did the man wipe out your history? How did the man, what did the man do to make you as dumb as you are right now? This is American justice. This is American democracy. And those of you who are familiar with it know that in America, democracy is hypocrisy. Now, if I'm wrong, put me in jail. But if you can't prove that a democracy is not hypocrisy, then don't put your hands on me. Democracy is hypocrisy. If democracy means freedom, why aren't our people free? If democracy means justice, why don't we have justice? If democracy means equality, why don't we have equality?
Okay, so I want you guys to think, if someone asked you, who are you, how would you answer that question? I mean, would you base it based on your religion, based on your race, ethnicity, based on your age, your gender? Think about it for about 20 seconds, and then we're going to go around and answer that. And there's no right or wrong answer at all. Who wants to start?
I'll start. I base it on what I do. And back about 20 years ago, I would have based it on that I had kids, and I'd say I was a mother. But now I don't. That's what I do.
Who am I? Well, I realize that I sometimes refer to myself as a white middle-class fat lady, but it depends. It all depends on you know, where I am, you know, in terms of. I mean, sometimes I tell people I'm an activist. Sometimes I will admit I spend a lot of time talking about as many stories as I hear about your relatives, and I talk a lot about Yassine Ref. But who am I? I don't know. It's a really hard question. It's a very hard question. But I do know that I can get away with an awful lot of stuff other people cannot get away with. And I always remember being in the subway at midnight with Hany and Ayesha and Alicia and the wall of names. And when we had it rolled up, it looks kind of like a rocket launcher. So Ayesha and I are hauling the thing through the subway, right? And Hany won't touch it. And I'm like, Hany. And he says, it looks like a rocket launcher. And then Hany finally says, I'm going to stand next to me because I was the white lady in the subway. And I can get away with anything. And I realize that because literally, I can get away with doing almost anything because of my class and my color. And I understand that. And that is why it is so important to me to open my mouth and talk about the injustice that I see happening in our country today.
Anyone else? Who are you?
I like to answer with a Malcolm X quote.
Okay.
He has this quote where he says, I'm a man who has died 20 years ago, and I live like a man who's already dead. So I really like that quote because I feel like that's why he's so courageous and like he says, and you know, he's not afraid to cater his responses to, you know, what is kind of expected. I feel like that's what I want to do in journalism.
Amazing quote.
That's wonderful.
Go ahead. Who are you? Yeah.
Like my name?
You missed the little video.
Oh, sorry. Who are you? Like, if someone asked you, who are you, what would you say? What describes your identity? Like, what makes you you? In, like, one sentence. Let's see what you can do with one sentence.
I am Alicia.
Okay, that's good. I'll go. That's hard. I would say I am love, because I love giving love. I'm an educator. I'm an activist.
Yeah, I mean, I would say kind of same. I would say I'm a Muslim because I believe that I believe in Islam. You know, even though I don't practice perfectly. But I'm not sure of anything. You know, I mean, even though I know that I feel deeply that a God exists, I will never say that I know that God exists. So in that same sense, I can't. You know, I know I'm a human being, but I don't know where I really come from. I don't know what my ancestor really is. I mean, I know that my parents come from Egypt, but what after that? You know, so it's kind of along the lines of that quote. I don't really know, you know, the full length of my existence. So it's kind of hard to really say who I really am, other than say that I, you know, try to proclaim that I try to submit to whatever I feel I'm supposed to do on this earth, what my conscience tells me. I'm a person that tries to listen to my conscience.
That's actually a really good segue. So hold on to that. Does anyone else want to share who they are? Go ahead.
I'd say that I'm different because I'm not going to sit there and tell them exactly who I am. Because, like, I think that with people, they expect you to be that perfect person. So if you sit there and you tell them, like, let's say they're Christian. So then you tell them, oh, I'm Christian. Let's say they have, let's say you're not going to sit there and tell them, I'm exactly like you. You just have to say right out and say, I'm different. You know?
Oh, that's good.
The difference is what helps us identify who we are.
Yeah, and both of you guys brought up, like, other people imposing their ideas of your identity on you. So let's go to this next exercise. You see two words on those sheets of paper. What are the two words you see? Black and Muslim. And when we're talking about black, we're not talking about the color black. We're talking about black people, African American, African, whatever you
We should just
consider
spend a
them.
couple minutes only on this. Maybe, I think we should just write the words.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. Okay, so this is like a free, what is it called? Free association exercise, which means please do not think, oh, someone's gonna think I'm racist, or that's a stereotype, so I can't say it. We want you to come up with things that most people would consider these people, which are usually racist, okay? So we're not gonna say, oh, that's what you think, okay? So when someone says black, or when you think of a black person, what's the first thing that comes to your mind, or what is the first thing that comes to people's minds? Or how are these people portrayed, basically? Just shout it out. Okay, African American. Just shout it out.
Criminals,
Criminals.
drug dealers, rap music. Really,
No, what's the
just
first
say
thing
all the
that
things
comes
that
to your
society, you
mind?
know,
Poor.
Ghetto.
Obama. Poor. What else?
Detroit.
Detroit.
Sorry, I live in Detroit. Everybody thinks that I'm black, so.
Lazy.
lazy.
Lazy. Yeah.
Religious.
Religious. Anything else?
Chicken.
Fried chicken.
Oh, yeah.
Hot sauce.
Slavery.
Hot sauce.
Slavery.
I'm going off undercover brother.
Slavery.
Good dancers.
Good dancers, yeah. Entertainers, athletics.
Yeah.
Actor.
Athletes.
Basketball.
They like money, they like to show off their money, they like their bling bling.
Prostitutes.
Money. Prostitutes?
Yeah.
Prostitutes. Okay, think of
Welfare. Welfare moms.
Welfare.
Four.
Welfare queens.
That's good.
I think we're good.
Yeah,
that's good. What about Muslim?
Terrorists.
Terrorists.
That's the first thing.
Yep, absolutely, you guys.
Oppressed women.
Oppressed women.
Oppressed.
Do I know how to spell properly? Okay. Women. What else?
Closed-minded, religious.
Closed-minded. Religious. I'm sorry, it's such horrible.
Fanatics.
Yeah.
Fanatics.
Women wear burqas.
Dirty, maybe?
Oh, dirty.
Because
Yeah.
I think it would make sense.
Dirty.
Excessive people.
Dirty people.
dirty. Control.
Rude.
Violent men.
Violent men.
They hate a lot of people because they use religion against them, like gay marriage. They hate gay people.
Like intolerant.
Intolerance.
Oil money.
Intolerance is important.
Hospitable.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah, we're not saying the good things of both sides. That's true.
How about they ride camels?
They ride camels.
Oh, yeah.
Right,
Camels.
right.
Oh, yeah, it's cool
They
to
come
say, oh,
they come from the desert. Taxi drivers.
Or they
oh, yeah, you got
good
it.
cookers. Good cookers.
Jail.
Okay, good. Jail.
Yeah. Political prisoners.
Yeah, that's
Well,
good. I think that's good.
and here in the United States, we tend to think of Muslim as Arab.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay, so is that true about, how many people are Muslim in this room?
Are you all terrorists?
Are all those things true about you guys? About us? Wait, I'm asking, are these things true?
No.
So where do these ideas come from? Yeah.
Other people?
Other people, and how do other people's ideas influence us into thinking this about ourselves?
Media.
I think, yeah, I was about to say that, media.
Perfect, perfect. And so we're easy to be like, oh, we're not terrorists, we don't ride camels, but that happens to other groups of people too. So we might say, oh, but really black people are lazy. Really? Where's that come from? So we can't just say, oh, that's wrong about our own people and not try to think critically and deconstruct how the way we think about other people, like maybe black people, is also influenced by the media and how those images that are sent to us are really not true. So let's look at how the media portrayed black people back in, was this the 60s?
I mean, just from early days.
And then we're going to look at how Muslims and Arabs are portrayed, okay? And see if that matches up this list.
How are you this evening? Me?
This is before the 60s.
I have the personification of heaven. Good. Who was that lady I saw you with this afternoon?
Show white people, you could show black people if you dress like white. So white people have to dress like black people and paint their face. laugh at it, make jokes about it. Basically, it was okay to see black people on TV as long as you could make fun of them, as long as you didn't have to take them serious. Big lips, big eyes, eating fried chicken, watermelon. This is still the byproducts of it today. You don't see black people taking it serious. Entertainment is good, and you can express yourself, but even black people were subjugated to these concepts. They kind of found their trap. Becoming entertainers, never being appreciated for being other.
I'm ready, Uncle Tom. Is you ready, family Green? I'm always ready. I broke in as a bootleg, you know.
It's not a big deal.
Oh, for a month and a half.
Yeah, I know.
Oh wait, this is good. This is the last time we wanted to hear her say it. She doesn't say it's fine, but basically she's complaining, you know, oh, I have to keep putting this on my face. You know, like she's complaining about having to...
I've been dreaming how pretty I was going to look tonight. Well, here's my punishment for thinking so well of myself.
This is tough to put on.
Okay,
Okay,
so
so
you get the idea.
So the next clip you're going to see is called Planet of the Arabs. And they're basically different clips from...
Take off.
So they're basically different clips from Hollywood movies made by Americans and the West that portray Muslims in a certain way. So I think we'll watch the whole one.
Yeah, we missed the
Those
line.
movies, because obviously I was a child in the late 50s,
Yeah.
I do not remember seeing that kind of thing
Yeah.
on TV. So I think that has to be from maybe the mid-50s before.
Yeah, definitely. So everything like in
But I
Hollywood.
still watch
But the point is that
sometimes.
these clips, this is the psyche that was built
Yes.
into
Oh,
the
yes.
system that exists today.
Yeah.
You don't
Yes.
see black people on TV the way you see them if it wasn't for this kind of imagery that existed
Yeah.
before them. So look at the Arabs, for example, Arabs and Muslims now.
And the way they conflate Arabs and Muslims.
This is just a bunch of different films, different movies.
Oh my gosh, that's
This is a hijack!
Dr. Omar, does this say what God's command is?
To kill Americans.
It's your government we fight, not you. It's your White House. One day I will go there. I will drive a truck. And truck it will blow.
You have killed our women and our children, bombed our cities from afar like cowards, and you dare to call us terrorists?
Amanda White's boyfriend.
Husband. Yeah, I was.
You didn't hear? She was in Paris showing the fall collection. She got hit by a burst of terrorist crossfire, Palestinians, French police.
Oh my God. They found me. I don't know how, but they found me. Run for it, Marty! Who? What do you think? Holy shit!
Attacking the way wife. Attacking the way wife.
There's no borders, no customs. They can go anywhere in the U.S. There's nothing to stop them.
That
kidding yourself. That'll set you off better. Do you understand what I'm saying? American citizen. American citizen.
Before we start drilling, where should we park the camels?
American cowboys. If you're looking at me, you're looking at country. Why you these guys make me nervous?
Mr. Lacombe said for me to tell you, camel jockeys, that if you fuck with him, he's gonna cut off your balls and stick them up your ass. You guys eat this shit? You're a dead man. I'm not afraid to die. Are you?
No. Allah protects us.
Well, then, this shouldn't hurt.
Beginning to believe the illusions we're spinning here. You're beginning to think that the tube is reality and that your own lives are unreal. You do whatever the tube tells you. You dress like the tube, you eat like the tube, you raise your children like the tube, you even sex like the tube. This is mass madness, you maniacs.
The president wants you to fly to Israel.
Israel?
Well, Israel is America's best friend.
So we'll stop there. It's good that it stopped there.
Oh, yeah. God. So, hey, we're mostly girls here, you know. It's a really rough movie for.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's actually a good point, because how are women portrayed? Yeah.
They're sort of invisible.
They're sort of invisible, and the few scenes where women were portrayed, not necessarily Muslim women, but white women, what was the portrayal? Like, how, what?
I mean, there's no sensitivity, there's no families, there's no love, there's no, anything that is considered to be an ordinary, daily life of an Arab or a Muslim.
Yeah, and
it's just violence, it's aggressive, and it's tunnel vision.
Yeah, and I want to go back to the women, because does anyone remember seeing any women here? What was happening in that
Being
situation?
attacked, I think.
They were being attacked,
Yeah.
right? So there's this whole concept of the Muslim man being this aggressor and this violent person that's attacking either white women or Muslim women themselves. So what are the repercussions of images like this? Why is this a problem, or do you not think this is a problem? There's a difference between what we watch for entertainment and what happens in real life. Is there any connection between what we saw here and this free association on Muslim?
Yeah, I've certainly seen it in the courtroom where white juries have no problems convicting Muslims, males of nothing.
I mean, these guys are being convicted by juries, okay, that watch these things. They know nothing about these cases. They're educated in the system where they think black and white is really just black and white. And if they're black, they're this way. If they're white, they're this way. And they're able to connect everything to the map that we just went through. They were all part of one human family. That people migrated to the north, people migrated to the south, and this made up who we are as people. And this is who these jurors are. They're just people that are raised on these concepts and these ideas.
And the reason this is important for us to do this when we're talking about direct action is because we need to understand the minds of people and what influences our thoughts in order to conquer this. If people are still thinking this way, we need to know where these ideas come from in order to make positive change. And we can't just only focus on our own people, okay? And of course there are overlaps, but Lori's here now, but originally we were saying, are there any African Americans in the room? There weren't. But we can look at the history and see how these same free associations are also connected to the media. So how are black people portrayed in Bamboozled, in that clip that we just saw? Yeah.
As these dumb people.
That's
standards. What about that white woman who was painting color on her face?
Putting blackface on it.
Not attractive.
Not attractive. Good.
As if something's wrong with being black, you know, like she was putting on that black face and like, you know, thank God I get to take this off. You know, it's such a terrible thing to have to be black.
So we're at a time. We just have 1 5-minute ending activity to bring this all together. What time is it?
It is 12:40.
Yeah, okay, so we have some time, but it really only takes about 5 minutes. And we're going to put this on hold and then talk about it for a minute after we do this activity because it's connected. So I want everyone, I'm going to put a label on your forehead, okay? When I put this label on your forehead, you are not allowed to tell anyone else what their label says, otherwise it'll ruin the activity, okay? So you can't look at what your label says and you can't tell anyone or give them any hints about what their label says, okay?
And you know, also a thing that we didn't really mention, but when you watch these clips, they kind of make you angry, right? Of how black people are portrayed in this country, and then how Muslims are portrayed in this country. And it should make you really angry. You know, Malcolm X said that being angry, and I'm probably not quoting it right. You're good with Malcolm X quotes. But he said being angry is a gift, roughly. I don't know if that's the exact statement, but pretty much it. And it is. It's a beautiful gift to be angry. You should be angry when you see these things, but the question is, what do you do with it, right? I mean, the media wants to make us out to look like we actually act like this when we get angry. You know, but the question is, are we really understanding on why people in the United States think the way they think? Are we able to reflect and deconstruct? They think the way they think because this is what they're fed. Just like we're actually eating what we're being fed. You know, we're only eating what this country and what the government tells us is okay. It's only what's advertised to us. So we think the food that we're eating is okay. It doesn't matter if it's genetically processed or if it's coming from an animal that was tortured. It doesn't matter if the chicken's legs broke and the chicken was rolling around in the feces for its entire life and now we're eating it. It's the same exact concept. We're only as good as what we're fed.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Muslim Rage music article.
Yeah, exactly.
There was a Muslim Rage Newsweek article? Did I understand?
Yeah.
We'll look it up.
There was an issue that had, it was basically the title Muslim Rage, I think. And it was when the protests were going on in the
like angry Muslim men shouting.
About the prophets, about the video about the prophets.
Oh, right, yes. Oh, yeah.
So there was a hilarious response on Twitter by Muslims, mostly like making fun of.
No, first I think it started on Jezebel, right? Well, they wrote an article about Muslim Rage, and they like took pictures of like two like I don't know, he's holding hands and then Muslim Rage.
Yeah, I think I started after.
Oh, started after.
After Twitter, yeah, there was a Twitter response.
Yeah, so there's a Twitter response where hashtag.
That's so true.
Nice.
I don't know.
I was watching a training after
You guys want to put
like Starburst because they have something,
like
ridiculous things.
No Doritos, right?
Yeah,
Kitty Doritos.
One was lost my nephew at the airport. Can't call for him because his name is
Yeah, I heard that joke somewhere.
That joke.
Okay, so is everyone ready?
Just set my.
Okay.
Hany doesn't have one. No, sorry.
Facilitate.
I'll order one if you don't.
Okay. Well, you can't see what it is. Oh, I have one.
I have like these coins at the bottom of my jacket.
Okay. So, you guys.
This is what we're going to do, guys. We're going to walk around.
So you guys are going to have exactly 2 minutes to walk around, and you're just going to have conversations with each other. You can't make gestures or say to them what's on their forehead, but you're going to go try to interact with as many people as possible. Yours is falling off. And you're going to treat them as if they are what's on their forehead. So at the end, after 2 minutes, we're going to sit down and you're going to have to guess what your label says based on how you were treated or perceived, okay?
Does that make sense? So you need to go up to the person and you...
But you can't say, for example, if mine says dumb, you can't say, oh, you're so dumb, okay, because that gives it up. But you have to act in a certain way to make them feel that, okay? Questions? And I just know that nothing that's put on your forehead has anything to do with you. It's completely random.
And look, mine says something, so I'm not going to know right away what it says just by speaking to one person. But after I speak to enough people, and enough people treat me a certain way, maybe I can start figuring out what it is that's on my forehead. And you won't say it yet, but after we sit down again, then you'll try to, reveal what you think it is.
Yeah.
So just go around and talk to as many people as you
can.
can.
And it's also reflecting. You're reflecting on how other people are treating you.
And you're trying to learn about yourself in a way. If you just look at it as a metaphor, you're trying to learn about yourself, who you are, and how people see you.
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3, go. You got 2 minutes. Start interacting with as many people as possible.
Are you okay? You look like you might break.
Everyone has to talk to each other.
Please don't touch me.
All right, little how you doing? I hope you're well. Then you're
Oh no, his baby.
No, that's all I got.
Yeah, I don't know. You like that?
What did people say?
Oh, I can't see. I'm a
I like you as a person. I just don't know if I can trust you. Just doing what you're saying.
30 seconds.
Okay, so wait. Hanan, I like your shirt.
I don't know what to do about
We need to write things down for her.
Okay, can you talk with me?
I don't even want to say anything to you because you might respond. You're not very positive.
Hey, everyone take a seat. Wrap it up. Take a seat.
Anyway, I want to stand too close to you.
Okay, guys, please take a seat. Lunch is starting.
Nice shoes.
Probably let's sit down, guys. Let's sit down.
With 3 or 4 cars parked in the.
You probably know what?
We'll go through it now.
100 times 100.
I do.
Okay.
Very good in numbers.
So
Good at numbers.
we're gonna go around the room, and real quick, you're just gonna say what you think your label is. Then you're gonna take it off and match it up, and then we're gonna do a 1-minute closing, and then we can go eat. Okay? So why don't you start?
Okay, so I mean, I felt really confident. I got a lot of praise. And I felt, is that the word, confident?
No, but okay, we're gonna.
Well, I felt confident. I felt good. I felt privileged. I felt like I could actually succeed in the world. And I was a bit entitled. I felt kind of entitled. I felt entitled, like I can do anything I want. And sometimes that's all you need.
I mean, really, I'm being honest. I don't know what to feel. I don't know. I just don't know how I'm supposed to feel. I guess incompetent. No wonder. No wonder.
But does it make sense now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Everyone's told me, are you sick? Did you go to the doctor? So I think that I'm sick.
Okay, let's see how close you are.
Ow.
You're diseased.
Yep.
I think I'm blind.
Take it off and see.
Or colorblind.
Wow. Wow, you said blind. You felt like people were treating you like
Well,
you were
this
blind.
one was like, you know, this is awful, right? And then she was like, you must be a blind.
But listen to that comparison. She felt like she was blind. Like you were treating her like she was blind because they said, well, they thought that she was unintelligent. That's interesting.
What you
felt like I was rich.
You feel like you were rich?
Nice car, nice house.
Okay.
Like wearing jewelry.
Let's see.
You're a material girl.
Okay. Do you want to do yours? What did you feel like?
Which one? Like Fatima.
Yours is too hard to break down. That's okay.
Alright, go ahead, let me.
How about whoever?
Who wants to go next?
I don't know. Maybe.
Oh, maybe a musical?
Okay.
A musical? What is it?
Yeah, musical.
Yes.
Okay.
What did you say? Musical? Oh, you are musical.
Numbers or something, I felt like an account, maybe? Good at math.
I felt like people were really scared, so it must be something dangerous like an ex-con or something. Violent.
Well, I thought that people were saying that I'm depressed. So, I don't know.
Or a drama queen.
Or emotional. Or emotional. I felt like myself, and by the time I figured it out, I was actually lazy.
Wait, you felt like what though? What did you feel like?
Yeah, because like
yourself.
everybody was like, "Do you do your homework a lot? Do you like school?"
wow.
And I was like, "No." But yeah.
Everybody was saying that I can't keep secrets. I don't know. I don't know what it is. Do I like talk to her? Oh, I'm not sure. That's really good. What is that?
People, I don't know, I think I must be a space case or something. People kept asking me if that I needed a calendar or, had to write things down.
What
So,
does it say? I don't even remember. Short-term memory, maybe?
yeah, something like that. So I thought maybe a space case, but I can't.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Oh, forgetful.
Oh, okay. I feel like the world is like my death trap. So I have no idea.
Sorry for the label.
Real.
Real, yeah.
I think I'm dirty.
Okay.
I don't think I like these labels.
No, and obviously we don't walk around in the world with sticky labels on our foreheads, but in a way, symbolically, we kind of do. Because a lot of people judge us and have stereotypes, like we just saw, based on the media or based on family members passing down ideas through generations, based on culture. And where those labels are associated by the way we look. So if we have a certain skin color, if we wear hijab, if we talk a certain way, we have a label that people are basically treating us.
And also how people talk to other people. Like, I can go to my friend and say that Reem's untrustworthy, and that friend would want to come and say something to her, and she's like, oh, never mind.
Yeah, it's true, and it's important to reflect on not just how you treat people based on these labels, but how your own personality changes and how you are affected by the way people treat you. And so I want everyone to close their eyes and sit silently and answer these questions in your head, because we don't have time to discuss them as much, so you're just going to reflect on them yourself. So everyone, please close your eyes. Okay. How did each person feel during this activity? So how did you feel? Was it difficult to treat people according to their labels? Did anyone begin to prove their label? For example, did someone labeled witty begin to tell jokes and behave more confidently? Close your eyes, guys. Or the person labeled lazy, did they stop helping or stop participating? What sorts of labels do we put on people in real life? How does it affect them, and how does it affect the way we think about them? In real life, who are given some of the labels that you used in this activity? Are they valid? How do perceptions of others affect the way you treat them? And how do those actions shape the way the receivers themselves behave? How do judgments perpetuate stereotypes? And the last question is, does the media shape society, or does society shape the media? So let that sit for a second, and then when you're ready, open your eyes. Does anyone want to share any of those thoughts? Any of those answers? How did you feel? What did you guys think?
Getting into the age of social media now, I feel like it's kind of in the middle because we shape it through, tweeting and whatever, but the media also influences what we're talking about.
Yeah, I agree. Anyone else?
I think out of this exercise comes a very important lesson and a reminder to us of something that we've been given, instructions we've been given in the Quran and in the Sunnah. First of all, one of the lessons that comes out of this is that more often than not, and I've seen this, manifested many, many, many times over the years, perception can be more powerful than reality. Perception, what we think, what we perceive based upon the way that we've been fed, the way that we've been manipulated, can be far more important than reality. And then that brings us to a reminder, those of us who, especially those of us who are Muslims and who have read the Quran, Allah tells us in the Quran to not make mockery of others. Not to make mockery of others. Allah instructs us in the Quran about suspicion, how suspicion can be evil, and it can be a sin in most cases. And then we're also reminded in the Prophet's Sunnah about the dangers of ghibah, of backbiting.
It's okay, leave her.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah. You're reminded of the dangers of ghibah, of backbiting. And the Prophet, peace be upon him, in that hadith, he asked his companions, "What is do you know what ghibah is?" And the companion responded, "No, surely Allah and His Messenger know best." He said, "It is to say of your brother or sister in his absence what you would not like to have said about you." And then the companion asked, "Well, what if what I say is true, O Messenger of Allah?" He said, "If it is true, then you have committed ghibah, which is bad. If it is not true, you have committed false and malicious slander, which is even worse." So both are bad. And we live in a world where ghibah is backbiting, and slander and gossip is something that, folks and networks have made a career and made a lot of money out of. And it's so easy for us to fall into that trap because it's all around us. And those of us who have been visited with the kind of evil that we've been visited with in this weekend's conference, we know how dangerous it can be because, just the hint or the whisper of this person being what he's been accused of can cause people that we've known for years to avoid us, to ostracize us. And so, I think this is a very important reminder of the power of perception and the power of backbiting and suspicion and all of those other negative things.
Thank you so much, Hoda. Yes.
I think when we did this activity, that without the sticker, people would know what you are when you when they see what you're doing, you're acting.
Yeah.
If you're lazy, they'll see that. They'll see you. If you don't want to do something, a lot of stuff.
So the question is, when you see somebody acting like one of these labels, how should you treat them? Should you continue to treat them the way they're acting? What should your attitude be towards people that act like these labels? Should you run from them? Should you leave them alone? Should you not communicate to them? Should you help them? How? I mean, you'll see, if I can say this, that most, everything that we talk about today, at least in this first workshop, is all about understanding ourselves, right? And about love, you know. It's what it's all about, first of all. If you don't really love yourself, how can you really love somebody else? How could you really give anything of value to somebody else when you don't love yourself? So if you really love yourself and you're able to love other people, you will figure out a way to be there for them. You'll figure out a way to overlook whatever those signals are that are coming towards you, telling you who that person is. You'll be able to overlook certain signals to be able to figure out which ones you should focus in on to help restore that situation for that person.
Yeah, and go ahead.
I think that in reality of life, like when you go to school, when you go to work, in society, that the label will always be on the other person's head, but it's really not there. It's in your head, kind of.
Yeah, exactly.
But like if I talk to my friend, like I said, and she said, "Oh, Reem's untrustworthy," like with all the conversations I'd ever have with my sister, I'd always see that label on her head that yells out, "She's untrustworthy. Don't tell her things." So even though, like you said, we don't walk around in the world without a label on our head, it's always going to be there. Like if people see me with my scarf, I'm going to have a million labels on my head, everything that's in that video.
Yeah.
And is it bad? Of course it is. Do I have control over it? No, I don't.
Well, that's a good point, and that's also something that we can debate in the next session, because the whole point of this is we have to deconstruct our perceptions and realities in order to rebuild our realities, right? So we need to understand these forces so that we can break them apart and build something better. So we'll...
Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's fine. So we'll talk about it in the next session, if there is actual like control that we can have over our lives to change these things. Go ahead.
Just to wrap up, going off of what you said about kind of, I guess we can look at it to a psychological point of view. Do you know Maslow's hierarchy? Yeah. So I think we all need to just, first of all, think about reaching the point of self-actualization. And obviously that, you know, we have the basic necessities to reach that self-actualization.
It's like when we get into the next session, like Ayesha said, you know, we hear about people that are always trying to find some kind of autonomous situation where they can help us, you know, provide sustainable means for their livelihoods. So, you know, you'll find people protesting like the way the Occupy Wall Street movement was happening, or other movements where they, you know, people are protesting for better wages. You know, unions will organize campaigns so people can protest better wages, better working conditions. But, you know, is that really what we're trying to do as Muslims or as activists or people trying to work on these issues? Are we just trying to just make a better situation? Or are we trying to develop a new system, a new way of thinking? So instead of begging for new wages, you know, maybe there's another system out there that can really bring a sustainable way of living for those workers that gives them true freedom, true rights. You know, maybe they should have an ownership of that company. Maybe they should be forcing or trying to push that company to become a cooperative, you know, where everybody has shares and rights over that company. Maybe there's a system there that can be developed, you know, instead of us limiting ourselves and settling on what we think our rights are. Maybe we don't really know what our full rights are. Maybe we need to step back a little bit and really try to really contemplate what our full rights are.
So, thank you guys. Is there any last minute words anyone wants to share, any reflections, any feelings? They don't have to do with this workshop either. If you just want to say something that you were happy about this week, or something that you're excited about next week, we can close with that. Mel, did you want to say something?
I would like to get a photograph of everybody. Oh. So it's sort of a reflection. It's a great group here. I guess that's my reflection. I'd like a picture of it. And I'd like you to take it.
I was actually going to add something.
Yeah.
One of your questions about the labels is that, I guess, let's say your label was lazy and, you know, everyone treats you that way, then you start internalizing that, even if you're not lazy, or even if it was just, you know, like one incident in which you were lazy, you start internalizing it, and then it becomes like a defeatist like mentality where you never, I guess, you never push yourself because you're like, oh well, I'm lazy anyway.
You start becoming what you're told you are.
Yeah.
I just have a question.
You're not the baby in the Alexandria family, are you?
That's the baby.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm glad to see you. It's been a while. Wow, it's amazing to see. I remember when you were just such a
crazy how life is.
Yeah.
She's following the footsteps of her sister and her
Mother.
mother.
Yeah.
So anyways, the next session,
It's after lunch.
this seemed